Thank you so much. I have to thank Jeff and Chris for having me speak today. I saw Chris's lecture last year at the 140 conference, and I was totally enamored and started following him ever since then. I want to talk with you today. Just before I start, how many of you in the audience are teachers? Okay, all right, super. Because I'm talking to you today as an educator, as a teacher myself, a staff developer, also a blogger. But we hear the word like innovative teaching being thrown around constantly in every single one of our little presentations today. But what I'm here to talk about is what that really looks like in the classroom. You know, what does innovative teaching look like? We could say, hypothetically, let's throw the textbook out. But is that really a possibility? For those of you that are content teachers like social studies, math, or science, that might be like the scariest thing for somebody to say, no textbooks. We're going completely paperless this year, and we're going to teach innovatively. We're going to throw out everything we originally thought about and try something totally new. Well, 10 years ago, I was hired to teach at a school as an English teacher, but after I had accepted the job, my principal said, well, you're really not going to teach English. We're going to have you teach some different elective elective classes like speech and debate or drama. I'm teaching a career exploration class and a media literacy class, and I also wrote and am teaching a history of rock and roll class. And even though I'm not like teaching a piece of literature, the skills, the standards are still there, hidden under these topics of what kids are more interested to say, I'd say, than some other topics like something within microbiology, not to bash any science teachers today, or algebra. But I'm still focusing on the skills, but just teaching it from a different sort of subject, and had no textbook, so I was really working with ideas and thinking about what I can do to get students interested and in the topics that I was teaching, and at the same time, like teach those literacy skills, those functional literacy skills that the core standards are always focusing on: reading, writing, speaking, listening, and then our critical thinking skills that are so important. And I was enlisting my friends to come in and talk at our career exploration class. I would go to a walk in the city and somebody would be holding up a sign, maybe it was like Marvel Comics, and I would walk a little faster and say, hey, my name is Michele Haiken and I'm teaching at Rye Middle School. I teach a career exploration class. Would one of your people at Marvel Comics want to come in and talk to my students? And we sort of had like a situation where every week guest speakers were coming in. Now I'd have handouts for my students and they'd have like a little notebook, but the most heart-wrenching part of the semester would come at the end where my students would say, could I throw out all this stuff right now? And I was just like taken aback, because you could probably go into my files and I probably still have my 6th grade units that I studied in middle school and high school. So for somebody to tell me, is it okay for me to recycle this or throw it out, that was like a crush to my heart. So then my next approach was, well, how do I go paperless? And how do I create exciting educational opportunities for my students without the piling of posters up, or we're talking about those pathetic book reports that students were making, and make more authentic projects and assessments where my students can show me their learning and their understanding. And about 4 years ago, one of our technology teachers said, you should try this Wiki thing. And I have to just first say, because I was talking with Jeff in the back, I'm not selling wikis to anybody. I'm not being paid by Wiki Spaces, but I'm really here to talk about some of the great things that we can do and sort of begin to give up the things that we hold on to for security purposes. It's wonderful when an entire school gets smart boards in every one of their teachers' classrooms, where it is in the school that I am, but it's disheartening when I walk through the classrooms and the smart boards are doing nothing but collecting chalk dust because they put them up right in front of the chalkboards, or teachers are just throwing up their PowerPoints and just showing the PowerPoints over and over again. And like as teachers, we might think, oh, that's really cool. We got a PowerPoint that I can now touch to move the slide, but our students are still yawning and they're still bored because we're really not utilizing the technology tools the way that they are intended to be. I'm not a testing sort of teacher, so projects are my way that I want my students to show their understanding and their learning. And I started to look at other wikis that other teachers were doing to create some sort of internet web-based classroom space that would house the work that my students did, that would link to different readings and possibilities. And we have teacher-centered wikis, like we have teacher-centered classrooms, and we also have student-centered wikis. And really, my objective was to create a student-centered wiki. So how many of you, just again, we'll take a little survey, how many of you know what a wiki is? Maybe you use it with your classroom. All right, awesome, awesome. So I have about 5 wikis for each one of the classes that I am teaching now at Rye Middle School. And it's similar to the Blackboard. Some people have Moodle, some people have School Fusion. There's all these different programs out there. And I chose to separate from what my school was using and utilize the wiki for my own classrooms. And over the 4 years to develop, to house it, not to throw up my PowerPoint presentations, but really for it a place to be a collective space to share journaling, questions, discussions, embed videos, put up programs or projects that students are doing, whether students are making their own extra normal videos or their own prezzies. I mean, as new technology tools are constantly coming out, it's great for us to master it, but also to bridge that connection with our students and what they know and what their expertise is. They can be doing these projects themselves. So whether it's Blabberize, whether it's Voki, like all these great educational tools, or Glogster, students can actually put them and post them onto this wiki. And earlier this morning, Rebecca Levy, who was just out here talking with the parents, talked about how kids don't go home and talk, and parents want to know what they're doing in their classroom. The wiki lands this huge transparency so that students understand that they're doing this in real time for the entire web, for anybody to see across the world. And it's a nice thing, you have something like cluster maps, you just embed it right on the wiki so you could see who and where is actually looking at these different projects that students are doing or making or discussing. And the parents can also jump in and see what their kids are doing. I have parents emailing me if they have a question about a student's grade or what their son or daughter is doing in class. All I have to do is send them the link to say, oh, here, check out that Abby did this super project, or, you know, I want to show you what Mike has been working on in the computer lab. He hasn't really generated a lot. Maybe I can get your help with that. So tons of great things and tools to utilize in the classroom, and a lot of you are already using it. And then there's also a handful of people who are a little like, that's extra work. I don't know, Michelle. I don't know if I really want to do that. How do you have the time for that? And for me, it started as one wiki with one class. And let's try out something. Let me try out this web quest here. Let me try out where one project, each student was going to take a rocker, and we created a whole entire collage of the 50 greatest rockers of all times. But it lent for discussions and debates and research and introspection and summarizing and all those skills that we're required to do in our core content classes to put it through into any project that's possible. Sorry. But wikis are a great starting place. Wait a second. I'm sorry. Can I just get water? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Ah, sorry, it's a little dusty and dry, but but wikis are a great place to do some work, to dabble in. I'm somebody who sort of like looks to the world for ideas, and I'm constantly listening on the radio or reading and seeing what people are doing and figuring out how I can turn that into a classroom project. I listen to NPR a lot, and I love Radio Lab. And I started to listen to all the different radio labs that I could actually find and listen and study the craft of it. Oh, thank you so much. And from there, my speech students started to craft their own little radio lab projects. We studied what type of radio labs topics they were, the whole structure of it. And it became a whole writing and podcasting lesson, but then we just slapped it up on the wiki, and then other people can see it. Other people can hear it. It's not just something happening in the classroom, in the closed doors, but it's something that the students see and can access all the time. A friend of mine showed me a candy bar site where you could customize your own candy bars. And I looked at it and I thought, this is amazing. We need to turn this into a lesson. So it's about taking and stealing little ideas here and there from around the world and figuring out how and where it belongs in our classroom and going from there and making everything accessible, not just to our students in our classroom, not just focusing on the teacher-centered model of teaching, but really giving our students the opportunity to show their expertise when it comes to technology, as well as to really show the world what our students are in terms of their own smarts, in terms of their own creativity, so that we follow along and practice that idea that young people are not just consumers of technology, but they're the producers as well, and highlight that in our classroom. So we have about 3 minutes left, so I'll open it up to some questions that you have for me, or about projects that I've done, or about other technology tools. Yes?
So have you worked on projects in real time with your students that ended up being of benefit to the community that you live in, or that they live in?
In terms of, like, with the chocolate project, we decided that we would take the money that we made off of, like, we had a huge competition where first in the classroom the students had to create their own candy bar, what they thought would sell the most in our school, with the idea that we would sell the candy bars for a profit. And then we decided that we would then donate the money and give it to organizations that we felt were important to. I mean, in my 8th grade class, we had a whole huge discussion about who should get the money. Should it be for community? Should it be for school or education? And we had, like, debates and conversations and constant discussions. We ended up giving the money to, we split the money and gave half to they wanted to give it to the ASPCA, and then we gave the other money to the Red Cross, because it was right after the hurricanes and the tornadoes. So, like, what I try to do is to, like, nudge my students to think about how they can do something and then spin into something positive, or have, like, a social mission as well. So I think with everything that we've done, I try to make it so that it benefits the community. Like in my drama class, we do puppet shows. The students make the puppets. We then also film them, but we also go to the elementary schools and we present it to the elementary school. So that's my interest. Sometimes it's not my students' objective, but my job then is to, like, nudge it so they can have this social awareness. And a handful of them do. So I hope that answered your question. Yes? Sure. I have a filter in my school system, so my largest probably stumbling block that I come across is that I will find something that is an amazing tool and then it's totally blocked. And then I have to go to like the head of the computer technology and like beg or plead or sometimes bribe to get that unblocked. And sometimes it works. Like actually this fall we're going to be using the Google Docs and the Google Forms, and she knew that I was looking to create for my speech and debate students a collaborative writing program in real time, and I asked her to do like Dabblemeboard and a few other ones that she was like, no, but you can pilot the Google Doc. So, you know, I try to, there are so many things, there's not just like one comic, there's not one type of wiki program, there's like 6 or 7. So like I try to figure out and look at, okay, here's my list, let's try this one. Is this easy? Is this accessible? With the wikis, it took me a little while to figure out, but it's become successful. If you have questions for me, I'll be outside. You can also ask questions on Twitter. So if you want to see some of the things that I do on my blog, I have links to all of my classroom wikis, so you can see some of the projects that my students have done, because I'm constantly changing it. So,